What if the very thing that breaks you is the very thing that makes you? In a forgotten circus, under lights that flickered like dying stars, lived a man named Baldomero, a hunchback clown whose twisted spine carried the weight of 1,000 cruel laughs. Every night, crowds roared at his pain, and every night, he walked home alone, wondering if suffering had any meaning at all. The Bhagavad Gita speaks of this darkness. In chapter 2, verse 14, Krishna tells Arjuna, the contact of the senses with their objects gives rise to cold and heat, pleasure and pain. They come and go, they are impermanent. Endure them, O Arjuna, not as punishment, not as failure, but as the very texture of a human life, waves that rise, and inevitably, return to the ocean. Buddhism carries a similar truth in the parable of the mustard seed. A grieving mother begged the Buddha to restore her dead child. He asked her to bring one mustard seed from a home untouched by loss. She searched every village. Every door held grief. And in that searching, she understood. Suffering is not your exile from humanity. It is your deepest entrance into it. We live in an age that worships comfort. We mute our pain with noise, with scrolling, with busyness. Anything to avoid sitting with what hurts. But Baldomero had nowhere to hide. His body was his cage and his teacher simultaneously. Modern psychology calls this post-traumatic growth, the documented phenomenon where the deepest wounds, when faced honestly, become the soil from which wisdom grows. The crowds laughed at Baldomero, but one night, a brilliant stranger watched with him, not at the performance, but at the man behind the painted smile, and something shifted. To be truly seen in your suffering is one of the most transformative experiences a human being can receive. The Stoics called this sympathia, the deep interconnection of all souls. When one person's pain is witnessed with dignity, both are healed. Baldomero's hunchback was visible. Yours may be invisible. A childhood wound, a quiet shame, a dream you buried. But the shape of suffering matters less than what you do inside it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your obstacle is not blocking your path. In ways you cannot yet see, it is your path. Here is the paradox that changes everything. Baldomero was most alive in his most broken moments, not despite the pain, but because it had stripped away every pretense, every mask, every comfortable lie. Like a river that carves a canyon not by force but by persistence. His suffering had carved something vast and deep inside him, a capacity for compassion that the comfortable never find. And then came the turning point. The night Baldomero stopped asking why me? And began asking what is this teaching me? That single shift from victim to student is perhaps the most courageous act a human being can perform. The Gita calls it viveka, discernment, the ability to see beyond appearances into the deeper current of meaning flowing beneath all things. In that moment, his suffering did not disappear, but it became sacred. Today, try this. Find one pain you have been running from, one wound you have labeled as only loss. Sit with it for 5 quiet minutes. Not to fix it, not to explain it. Simply ask, what has this opened in me that nothing else could? Write one honest answer. This is not toxic positivity. This is the ancient art of alchemy, turning the lead of suffering into the gold of wisdom. Baldomero never stopped being a clown, but he stopped being only a clown. He became a man who had walked through fire and carried its warmth in his hands. Your suffering, too, is not the end of your story. It may be the very beginning of your truest one. Subscribe to LifeVeda for daily wisdom that transforms your life.